What is the worst physical pain you have ever felt?
Probably when I had a root canal.
It was a vicious sprain.
When I was diagnosed with lupus.
It was my L5, S1, I guess, vertebrae, I don't know, disc herniation.
Now let me ask you, has anything you have ever watched or read or played come even close to accurately communicating that pain? Probably not. It's a difficult task even for the one experiencing the pain.
It's kind of hard to describe the pain of a herniated disc.
If you have ever been to a hospital or doctors and they asked you to describe your pain, you know that words typically fail us here. Even so, if you are creating stories of any kind, you will eventually have to accept this challenge, as pain is such a fundamental part of life. Video games are an interactive art form, so maybe they are uniquely equipped for the challenge of communicating pain. As the player character, you get hit all the time in games. Many games try to communicate this by shaking the camera on impact and adding some combination of on-screen effects, like blood splatters or color desaturation. Other games go a little further and sharply drop the audio when you get hit, or even move your character to reflect the impact. The game Hollow Knight has a particularly effective version of this. The whole screen flashes, and the audio sounds like your ears have just been boxed. The damage effects of this game jolted me every time, even after hundreds of impacts. Sometimes pain is best communicated when it's happening to someone else. The Last Guardian, a wonderful game from 2016, gives you a giant, majestic beast as a companion. And the beginning of your relationship with the animal has you pulling spears out of its body. The way the beast shakes at the pain is hard to watch. The accuracy of the creature's whines and the effort it takes to slowly pull the spears out makes this section feel excruciating. No on-screen effects needed. An animal in pain is visceral enough on its own. Video games can also use the controller in your hand to try to communicate pain. Controllers have the ability to rumble, and getting hit might coincide with a brief shaking of the controller in your palms. If tuned correctly, the vibration can be strong and quick enough to actually be affecting, but certainly not painful. However, there are examples of devices that have tried to actually cause pain. For example, a game controller that whips your hand whenever you lose. Ow, 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 ow. Or a controller that gives you minor electric shocks.
3, 2, 1. Oh, me!
Maybe the most extreme example of these devices is a controller that draws your blood every time you get shot. Content warning for small amounts of blood.
All we're doing is taking the electrical signal from the controller every time it rumbles and using it to turn on the blood collection system.
Unsurprisingly, these are not commercially available products, just novel experiments. And Bloodsport, the controller that draws your blood, was a well-meaning publicity stunt meant to encourage blood donation. Bloodborne, a game which is known for its combat mechanics, plays with the idea of pain in its own way. In fights, you can be hit and your health will go down like any other game. But in Bloodborne, you have a few moments after being hit to retaliate. If you do damage to the enemy moments after you have been damaged, you can regain some of your health back. In this way, the designers of the combat subvert the player's relationship with pain. Typically, getting hit would engender a retreat. But in Bloodborne, the game encourages you to fight against your learned behavior and attack when you would normally flee, reprogramming your instinctual response to pain. Humans can reprogram our response to pain in real life. Take exercising, for example. We put our muscles under enough load to tear them, thereby tricking the body into building them back up, stronger and more numerous. And the soreness we feel during this process can be quite painful, but the association with that pain is positive. If you're exercising to gain muscle mass, getting no soreness actually feels disappointing. The phrase "no pain, no gain" exists for a reason. It is a mantra that helps you rethink the difficulty and pain of exercise. And if you internalize the mantra, you can go much further in your exercise goals, not despite the pain, but because of it. Hey, what is pain anyway? To provide a grossly simplified explanation, pain is one of the many ways your body and brain communicate with each other. This communication happens through the medium of nerves. Specifically, pain receptor nerve cells that are located nearly everywhere on your body. If they are triggered by some painful stimulus, they send an electrical signal up a branched pathway of nerves. The signal makes its way up to your spinal cord, where all the nerve branches converge, travels up the nerve superhighway of your spinal cord, and finally to your brain. Specific parts of your brain then interpret those signals and generate the experience of pain. Notice that I said the pain receptors are nearly everywhere on your body. The brain does not have pain receptors, and so while the brain creates pain, it does not feel pain itself. Because of this, those undergoing brain surgery can be conscious during the operation. In some cases, the patient being conscious is preferable so that the doctors can monitor the patient's brain functions and know quickly whether something has gone wrong. There have been multiple cases in which the patient was even asked to play an instrument during the surgery in order to help the surgeons identify the problem area or help them avoid damaging the brain. I'd like to show you an example of this because it is hard to believe without seeing it. If you are sensitive to surgical imagery, feel free to look away for about a minute.
Orchestra violinist Dagmar Turner had a brain tumor located near an area that controls fine movement. The 53-year-old was concerned surgery would affect her music. So neurosurgeons at King's College Hospital in London had Turner play during the procedure, helping them remove as much of the tumor as possible without damaging her ability to play.
Why aren't there any pain receptors in our brain? We don't know for sure, but my uneducated guess would be that because pain is a warning system for damage, it has no survival use in the brain. Historically, if you ever felt anything touching your brain, it was probably already too late for warnings. Whatever the reason is, I find it interesting that there is a kind of separation of church and state between the brain and body when it comes to physical pain. When the brain receives the messages from the pain receptors, it also sends descending signals to deal with the pain. Understandably, your brain first assumes that the pain is coming from a threat. There are many ways that your body then responds to the pain. Your heart rate increases, your breathing speeds up, and some adrenaline might be released to give your muscles the oxygen and energy they need to run away or fight whatever it was that just harmed you, even if it is just a couch that you stubbed your toe against. Your brain also delivers self-produced opioids to dull the pain. This is why you might feel euphoric just after a pain event. And if the pain levels get too high, you might pass out. How much pain you can withstand is different for everyone. Your pain tolerance is important to understand, especially for medical staff when treating you, as your tolerance being too high might make it more difficult for them to ascertain the severity of an issue and provide appropriate care. This understanding becomes difficult if the medical staff have incorrect beliefs about their patients. Multiple large-scale US studies have shown that relative to white patients, black patients are less likely to be given pain medications, and if given pain medications, receive lower quantities. This disparity in pain treatment is true even among young children. For instance, a study of nearly 1 million children diagnosed with appendicitis revealed that relative to white patients, black patients were less likely to receive any pain medication for moderate pain, and were less likely to receive opioids, the appropriate treatment, for severe pain. This racial bias can happen for a variety of reasons, including but not limited to false beliefs that black people have tougher skin than whites, or a general inability for white medical staff to fully empathize with black patients. The topic of racial bias in medicine is far too big for this video, but I encourage you to look further into it on your own. I have already asked about the worst physical pain you have ever experienced, but what is the worst physical pain ever? Most people might understandably guess childbirth, but another strong contender is kidney stones.
It was a sharp tearing pain as it moved down to the bladder. When they were coming down, it basically felt like shards of glass were being used to graffiti the walls as they were coming out.
In at least one survey of women who have gone through both, 79% said that the kidney stones were as bad or worse than childbirth. In either case, the brain and the body work together to create the sensation of pain, and it all starts from our nerves. But physical pain can exist without nerves too. A fascinating example of this is a phenomenon called phantom limb syndrome. It is when an amputee feels pain in their missing limb.
There was a month at least where I went through a mental crisis saying, how can a leg that I don't even have cause this kind of pain, you know?
This has been reported to occur in 80 to 100% of amputees. And while there are plenty of theories as to why or how this can happen, no one can say for certain.
The severe phantom pain, I can only describe it as your foot being in a bucket of water with piranhas in it or hot coals. It gets so debilitating that I've actually huddled into a corner and just cried myself to sleep because it just won't go away.
I can't imagine the frustration these amputees must feel. With typical pain, you might be able to treat it, or at least massage the area or try something for some momentary relief. But with phantom limbs, these amputees feel a very real pain that has no reliable treatment. While amputees feel pain where they logically shouldn't, oppositely, some people feel no pain where they should. One cause of this is a rare genetic disorder called congenital insensitivity to pain with anhidrosis, or CIPA for short. People with CIPA have nerves, and they have pain receptors, but they have a genetic mutation that results in an improper connection to the parts of the brain that receive pain messages. Because of this, people with CIPA also cannot feel extreme temperatures. There are other symptoms of CIPA, such as inability to sweat. This is what anhidrosis means, but the lack of pain is what is most important for this discussion.
Literally, these children come into the world and don't feel pain. These children we found have lost eyes because they've scratched themselves and they don't realise they've actually really seriously scratched their eyeballs. They've had to have their teeth taken out because they've bitten their tongue as little kiddies and not realised.
Pain is a fundamental part of our lives and of our body's function. The National Institute of Health phrases it well when they say that pain alters the quality of life more than any other health-related problem. Pain is not good, but it is useful. It is one of the main ways our body protects itself. And we can see the consequences of living completely pain-free. People with CIPA get minor injuries like anybody else, but because they have no pain, the minor injuries go unnoticed and become major injuries and infections. Accidentally putting your hand on a hot stove is bad, but leaving it there because you can't feel the heat is much worse. Over time, the accumulation of these injuries and infections can result in amputations or worse. A disease that you might have more familiarity with is leprosy. Leprosy has an archaic reputation for causing disfigurement, and people still often think that if they contact people with leprosy, they too will become disfigured. Because of this harmful myth, people with leprosy were historically ostracized or forced into camps, living in effective exile. But leprosy, which is a bacterial infection, does not itself disfigure. Among other things, what leprosy does do is damage the sensory nerves, leaving extremities unable to feel pain, and over time, like CIPA, makes the body vulnerable to burns and injuries that can result in loss of fingers, toes, hands, and feet. Unlike CIPA, leprosy is curable. So, while it may not feel like it in the moment, physical pain is a net positive force in our lives. And I want to clarify that I'm not talking about the sources of pain. If somebody hits you, that's bad. I'm not saying, well, it's actually a good thing if you look at it this way. No. What I am saying is that separate from the source of pain, the physiological phenomenon of pain is vital to our survival. Pain is vital to game design too. The player needs to be challenged. Having the player take damage and die to enemies might force them to engage with the combat tools more, or take their upgrades more seriously, or think more critically about their equipment. On a more basic level, difficulty can make the player improve their own innate skills in order to progress. A game that lets you kill all the enemies in one hit and take no damage yourself could be fun, but I doubt it would be memorable. For better or worse, a video game boss that takes an hour to defeat will certainly be more memorable than the one that you defeat in a single blow. Pain is one of the strongest creators of deep memories. And in asking people about their worst physical pain for this video, I found that many of those painful memories were also the source of great humor.
They had this big, tall, winding metal staircase, and we just got this bright idea, and we might have put one pillow at the bottom.
Why is it that some of our most painful memories are also often our funniest? In a lot of ways, it seems like pain is a strange gift, and we share that gift to others with the stories we tell. I think this is what some of the most difficult games out there aspire to. To be a source of challenge, yes, but also a source of memories and stories. However, that doesn't mean pain always makes the game design better. There is a limit. A game can be too difficult. If developers push the challenge too far, the player's progress is halted, and the game is over for them. The fun stops. This is true in real life as well. As useful as pain is, there is a point at which it outlives its use and becomes chronic. So far, we've been talking about acute pain, confined to a given period of time and severity. Chronic pain is its own category of pain that does not provide the protective response crucial to our survival. Doubtless some of you watching are all too familiar. It is a long-term pain that only serves to fatigue and frustrate the body and mind.
So the pain was so sharp that it felt like it was a knife inside my heart, and it gets twisted every time I take a breath and also every time my heart beats.
While chronic pain can have many causes, the results are typically the same: exhaustion, depression, and increased risk for developing other disorders. Video games can't emulate that kind of pain. And as we've seen, they can't do much to emulate acute pain either, even with their interactive nature. I would argue they actually do have a greater ability to communicate the other kind of pain we haven't talked about yet. I'm of course talking about emotional pain. Emotional pain is very different from physical pain. Of course, the two intermingle, and one can cause the other.
I think it was really compounded with the anxiety and feeling betrayed by this dentist that told me that it had been fine for months.
But there are stark differences. For one, while we can laugh about our worst injuries, and as more time passes those memories can get funnier, emotional pain tends to stay a sore subject, no matter how much time elapses. It's why the subject of emotional pain can't be broached as casually as that of a broken leg or a fat lip. There's a scene in The Last of Us Part 2 that does a good job of highlighting another big difference between emotional pain and physical pain. The main character, Ellie, is told a wounding truth from her father, Joel. In this moment, he confesses to her a devastating betrayal. I don't think you need to know the details, because Ellie's reaction speaks for itself. The way she clutches her chest is heartbreakingly familiar. Her face a mix of anguish, disbelief, and disgust.
I'll go back. But we're done.
I can feel some of her pain because the acting and graphical representation is so authentic. There is no physiological defenses against emotional pain. When you get a cut or a bruise, your body has a whole protocol and plan of action to deal with the problem. But when the pain is emotional, your body and mind are seemingly at a loss. Emotional pain is similar to phantom pain in this way. Nothing from within can really help you endure the unendurable. And honestly, outside help is extremely limited as well. There's no such thing as an emotional painkiller. There can be momentary distractions, like video games for instance. But not only are distractions temporary, when reality comes crashing back, it does so with a vengeance. I think Ellie's reaction here effectively communicates that helplessness. But video games can do even better than this. They are interactive, and so communicating emotional pain is best done through interaction. A little gem called Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons does this brilliantly. It's a game where 0 words are spoken, and you play as 2 brothers. The gameplay is unique in that you control the 2 brothers at the same time with 1 controller. The older brother is controlled with the left hand, and the younger brother is controlled with the right. It takes some getting used to, but after a while this ambidextrous control starts to feel natural. Along the way, the game presents you with puzzles where you need to control both siblings simultaneously. The older brother is stronger than the younger, and so you'll need your left hand to do tasks that require strength. The brothers are on this journey to retrieve life-saving medication for their father, and they go further from their village than they ever have and face many perils. Along the way, you'll find that the younger brother needs his older brother's help for a lot of things. For example, he can't swim on his own. He is terrified of water because the ocean took their mother. He holds on to his older brother during these segments. On the controller, this means simply holding a button with your right hand, while the left hand does all the work of swimming and steering. The older brother also pulls heavy levers and boosts his brother up high ledges that he's too small to jump to on his own. Near the end of the game, the brothers find the medicine they journeyed so far to get, but a dangerous enemy tries to stop them, and in a struggle to protect his younger brother, the older brother is stabbed with venom. He is too weak to walk on his own, and the roles are mirrored with the older brother holding on to the younger brother, your right hand now taking on the burden. You set your older brother down to retrieve the medicine, and by the time you get back, he has succumbed to the venom. It's now up to the younger brother to deliver the medicine and save their father. It's a sad moment, but not particularly affecting, and it was kind of expected. It didn't hit me until the younger brother had to start the long journey back home all on his own. You see, by this point in the game, you have become used to controlling both brothers with both hands simultaneously. It was a constant task to keep track of them both with your eyes and your thumbs. But now, when you walk around with just the younger brother, you can feel the absence in your palms. Your left hand has nothing to do. As a player, the left side of the controller is dead to you. This made me feel the loss more than a cutscene ever could. On your way home, the game presents you with old challenges that your brother used to handle, like the heavy lever or a high ledge. And each time they do this, the muscles in my left hand twitch, expecting to press a button, only to remember that the little brother has to do this on his own now. Then you face the final challenge. The little brother has to swim across an area on his own. At first, the younger brother struggles and looks like he won't make it. But here, when you press the button on the left side of the controller, something does happen. The younger brother gains just enough strength to make it across. The game is telling you through the controller that while the older brother isn't there in person, or even in spirit, he lives on in the lessons he taught his younger brother. The younger brother is missing a piece of himself for having lost his brother, yes, but he is also more whole for having known him. I was moved by this, because it would have been so much easier for the game to just be sad. But with this moment, the game takes something painful and reveals the natural beauty that exists within. There is no cure for emotional pain. The world would look very different if there was. But I don't think I'd want to live in that world. Emotional wounds are invisible to the naked eye, but they are the wounds that shape us the most. Excluding oppression and mental illness, I think the geometry that emotional pain adds to our personhood is valuable. My personal definition for happiness is having the freedom to experience the full spectrum of human life. And pain is a part of that. Of course, in the moment of pain, if I could snap my fingers and make the pain go away, I would. But I'm kind of glad I can't do that. Because without those peaks and valleys, life would be a flat line.